Very nice to see you all from wherever you are. And thanks for making the time for joining us today. So we're going to just put our slideshow on. There's going to be some opportunities to hear from one of our alums. We'll have some opportunities for you to chat to each other and some opportunities to ask questions, because that's the point of today, to help you with any questions that you might have, and also to just to work through a few ideas that may help you in your fundraising planning. So we'll just get ourselves organized. Thank you very much, Melanie. So thank you to all of you for little notes in the chat. That's lovely. I'm on Bunurong country in Williamstown in Victoria on the coast. As we said, it's very changeable, crazy weather. You'd think it was winter. It's supposed to be autumn, but that's okay. So welcome to our masterclass. It's flicking forward too soon, so I'll try not to do that. So in a moment, we'll give a few introductions, and we'll introduce you to Bianca Das, who's one of our alums from HB4, and we'll hear a bit about her story. Bianca, I'm going to ask you if you're here, I hope you're here, to talk a little bit earlier than in our session this morning, if that's all right. And then we're going to go into a breakout room, have a chat about what your fundraising story is, so you get a chance to talk about what's good for you, what you'd like to know about. And then we're going to talk about preparing a fundraising plan, some of the elements to it that I think will be helpful to you. And then you'll have seen with the invite that there were some HB toolkits. And if you haven't already had a chance to have a look at those, please do. And if you've got some questions, burning questions, any questions, just put them in the chat and we'll hopefully get to them as we go along. But if not, we'll pick them up along the way. So as I mentioned, Bianca is one of our HB4 alums, and we're really delighted to have her here today to talk about her story with Homeward Bound and to give some insights into her fundraising journey as well, because everyone's journey is a little bit different. And I'm going to ask Bianca to speak in just a minute, and Bianca will kindly allow some time for some questions as well. So yeah, it'll be a great opportunity, as it was this morning. A little bit about me, if you don't know who I am. I'm the CEO of Homeward Bound. I've been in the role since October 2021, and I'm a bit of a mixed bag. I was born in England to Irish parents, and I now live in Australia in Melbourne. My background has been a lot of fundraising, marketing, communications, and during COVID, I became a bit restless, and so I stood for council. So I'm a local councillor for the first time. Make sure we had some women on the council. That was my aim. So we have 4 women on the council, which is fantastic. I'm also a mad bird watcher, and during COVID as well, I published my first book. So I wanted to get all that fundraising stuff out of my head and hopefully share that with the community, which is what I've done. And you're welcome to go on the website and have a look if there's anything else there that can help you. And of course, write to me directly or the team directly with any questions at all that you might have. So a little bit about the Homeward Bound journey. Many of you are on different, we're all from different cohorts. If you're in HB8, you're probably, I can't move my cursor for you, I don't think, but you'll be down here just starting the journey, wondering what's ahead. If you're from one of the earlier cohorts, then you're further along that learning journey. And you might feel different levels of comfort as the challenge of the initiative increases. However, we're here to help you. The Homeward Bound journey is in part an online program, as you know, but it's also the whole collective experience of the online program, working with the faculty, joining a network of women around the world, which you will or already are if you're part of the convergence. So I want you to hold some of that worry that you have and know that the end is there. You're going to get there, and there's plenty of help on that journey with you as we go along. So I'm going to hand over to Bianca to tell us a little bit about her story. I'll ask her to introduce herself, tell us how she got involved with Homeward Bound, and then leave a little bit of time for some questions. So over to you, Bianca.
Hello, everybody. I'm joining you from Meanjin, Brisbane, but I'm currently usually based in Launceston, Tasmania at the moment, which is right at the bottom of Australia. It's a little island just off the south coast of the mainland of Australia, for those who aren't familiar. And it's about 3:30 in the afternoon here, and lovely and warm in Brisbane. So firstly, just wanted to say what an absolute pleasure it is and privilege to be with you and have your attention. Really, really appreciative of that, and also just super excited for you all. And a huge welcome to those from HV8. Congratulations, and for all of you who haven't been to Antarctica yet, it's just such a fantastic, worthwhile experience. And yes, you should do it if you're thinking about maybe not doing it. It's sort of like all of the things that for me, the experience was all of the things that we learned in the calls during the year, the 12-month training, just all in this intensive learning experience where it's quite a high pressure environment, and a lot more sort of comes to the surface than what happens in your day-to-day life when you're going through the course. And yeah, I really strongly recommend going to and doing the Antarctica phase of the trip. I won't be able to tell you exactly how to fundraise. I think Pamela will have some really good tips coming up later in the call, but I'll tell you a little bit about my journey and what I sort of went through. I acknowledge that I am coming, while I didn't actually have a lot of money myself as a PhD, just starting a PhD program, and that total fee of money being the largest sum of money I've ever had to deal with in my life. So while I, wasn't cash privileged, I was in a privileged position to access networks who had money. So that is something that may not be your reality. You may be in different stages of your life as well, which is, I don't want you to compare yourself to me in the fact that, oh, well, she did that, I should be able to do that, or, everybody's journey is different, and you really just got to do your best as the best you can in that space. And we all have different capacities. As a student, I had a bit more time to invest. Essentially, I guess I was more money poor but time rich to invest in that sort of thing. So that also helped me with my campaign and how much effort I was able to put into the fundraising. I just see a message that we have to be a little bit more strict with the timing, so I will try to keep it tight. So firstly, I just want to talk about the sheer terror and shame and guilt and all of the horrifying, scary things about fundraising. It's true. It was, for me, it was just so overwhelming. I was really quite daunted by that whole expectation. I felt guilty towards my partner. And yeah, I just kind of, there was that part of how dare I even try to raise this much money for something for myself. So that's something that I really had to work through and see as an investment in myself, and not necessarily just for me, but for what I am going to achieve in my career and how that's going to impact other people. So it was really about putting that narrative into something that is productive and useful for other people, and to see what how Homeward Bound is going to help my contribution to society. So that's how I framed it. And part of that was around working through guilt of asking other people for money. Yeah, I guess I kind of went through a few different things with that. So you can always come and talk to me a little bit more about that, how I, in different examples, I can give you plenty of different examples in that space. One thing that I did do was a crowdfunding page in the first instance, which helped me to get that first payment, which was quite a time critical payment for me to make. So that was something that really helped me. So I had, a time limit. I had to launch this campaign. I had to figure out my story and what I stood for. And then once I had that, I was able to get my biggest supporters, like my mum, to jump on board. And whenever I went back to New Zealand, so I'm originally from New Zealand, whenever I went back to New Zealand, she would have some fundraising events, whether they were like a potluck dinner with auctioning off food and drinks and artwork, and she sort of roped people into in her spheres and networks into that as well. So that was probably one of the really big things that helped me kind of find my feet in that sense. And then as I went through that journey of reaching out to people to enroll into my story about why I'm going to Antarctica, that kind of spread. And I guess I started to find out about other pockets of money that I could potentially access. So whether there were grants at the University of Queensland that were for like a gender and equity type fund. And then I was also able to access some money through my my previous employer at the CSIRO. I also did some team fundraising, which was something that was good for visibility, but wasn't necessarily as useful for the dollar value in terms of the input. So there was a group of 5 of us from Brisbane who were also huge kind of core support network for each other in terms of just going through the whole process of fundraising. A lot of them had a lot more confidence than I did initially, which really helped me. So really reaching out to my my colleagues and peers on the program that I could talk to immediately. We had bake sales, a movie night, and a few different things which were really good. And I also had a trivia night. So there was just like all these little different things that once there was one small event, someone else would offer, oh, would you like us to host a trivia event? And then we'd have raffles. And so I guess a lot of it was a lot of that talking to people, getting the small donations bit by bit. But essentially I had the networks and the capability to access those people. So I'll just quickly go over my take homes, and then that's pretty much it for me. So firstly, reach out to your support network. You aren't alone in this, and we want to see you succeed. If you're really, if you're struggling or freaking out about this, please, you're welcome to email me. You can reach out to the Homeward Bound group, and there will be options for you, and we can, we'll be able to make it work. But essentially, do not despair. There is a way through it. So please also look out for your cohort and other sisters as well, and just make sure that it is quite a mentally draining and daunting process. So just really look after your mental health in this phase. Secondly, define your story and what you stand for, and see it as an opportunity to grow and an opportunity that will force you to make the story work for you later in life as well. Then once you've got that story, get out there and tell people, even if you don't get money from them, or they're not necessarily interested, at least you're practicing speaking. Fourth, bring people on the journey with you. So what I did is I launched a separate Facebook page so that I wasn't annoying all my family and friends in case they weren't interested, but people could jump along on the journey. And I would post thank you messages and updates on where my fundraising was at. And that was a really nice way to acknowledge publicly where I'm at and those people that were contributing. And then I also use that to kind of keep people updated with my journey when I eventually went to Antarctica. And now that page is my professional page as a soil scientist. So I use that as my science communication tool. So it's something that's sort of stuck with me. And people really like to feel like that they're on that journey with you. And again, the Homeward Bound journey doesn't end after your formal training finishes. So that story will be something that will serve you for promotions, for getting a new job, or for advocating for a grant. So really use all of those Homeward Bound tools that you'll be taught. And it sounds like there's a whole suite of new tools as well, which is really fantastic. So I'll hand it back to Pamela. Thank you very much. And please feel free to contact me. I'll put my email in the chat.
Thanks so much, Bianca. So if you have any quick questions for Bianca, you can put them in the chat now. Some people have already made some comments, which is lovely. It's really wonderful to hear Bianca's story, and know that everyone has a different story, and we'll be coming into that in a few minutes. So what we'll do now is we're going to go into breakout rooms, and I'd like you to, having heard Bianca's story, I'd like you to, have a chat with others in the room and talk about what are you doing with your fundraising? What are you thinking about doing? And what are some ideas that you have? What questions might you have? And that will form the start of the conversation that we're having as we go through the workshop today. There's a question from Anna. Thanks, Bianca. Were you able to get some sponsors to support your journey as well? Fantastic.
I wasn't able to get any corporate sponsorship. Yeah. I didn't have, this is about a few years ago now, and I still am, I don't feel like I have those connections to a higher level corporate world to get those. I did reach out to companies as a group with the New Zealanders, and also with the Brisbane group. We really tried to reach out, and we wrote letters to all different sorts of companies, and that was just a complete dead end for me. But not to say that would, if you have the networks and it sounds like Pamela has some good tips on how to actually connect with companies, better skills than I had at the time. So that may help. It may still be worth a crack.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later, but it's not the first place to start. I think that's the message I would give, and we'll come back to that for sure. All right, well, for 5 minutes, we'll go into breakout rooms and just have a chat about what are you doing with your fundraising? What are you thinking about? Think outside corporate sponsorship. Think about your friends, your family, your work, other things that you might do. Somebody suggested this morning that they were going to write a song and sing it to people. I thought that was wonderful. I want to hear that song. I'll let Melanie organise the breakout rooms, and then we'll come back in a few minutes and have a brief chat about the discussions that we've had. Thanks, everyone. I hope you had a bit of a chat. Would anyone like to share any of their insights or thoughts that they had during the conversation? Doesn't have to be world-breaking. Can just be an insight or a thought.
I'm happy to start, Pamela.
Brilliant.
I just shared with my group something that I've started doing. Was I used to work as a barista making coffee, and I still have some contacts from that sort of industry and friends in the coffee industry. So there's a local coffee roastery that I approached about kind of just having a brainstorming session with them. And they were happy to offer to help me out with the coffee drive. So they're selling me bags of roasted coffee at a wholesale price, which I'm selling on at a retail price. So that will hopefully be quite a good fundraiser for me, just because I'm going to be doing it monthly. So it's kind of minimal time input for me. But it's also a consumable item that hopefully people might next month want another bag of coffee. And yeah, it also kind of helped me get over a little bit the awkwardness of asking for money for myself, when this way the person donating actually gets something out of it as well.
That's a fantastic. Just bear with me one moment. We've got a bit of dog chaos going on in the background. Who'd like to speak next? Are you all very shy today? All right, no worries. Well, if you have any thoughts or questions, do add them to the chat. And you know, it's really good to talk to each other. Remember, you're not on your own. And I think that coffee example is a really good example of how to work with companies. It's somebody you know, you've got a connection with them. Clearly, you love coffee. You know, it makes sense. Whereas trying to get to some of the bigger corporations can be very, very hard, particularly as they like to give to other companies rather than to individuals. So I think that's a really good example of working with a small local company and having some fun along the way. So let's have a chat about fundraising preparation. Now, I take quite a rational approach to fundraising, and you might want to say, well, you know, this is a very structured approach, but I think we need to take the mystery out of fundraising. You can create some really interesting ideas, lateral ideas. The coffee idea I love, the writing a song I love, you know, anything that appeals to you and uses your skills is a good thing. But a little preparation and a bit of planning is going to help you along the way as well. So has anyone ever applied for a grant application for research funding, that type of thing? Any one of us has applied for a grant or any kind of money? Yeah, there's a few nodding heads, a few shaking heads, very good. So you know that the best way to give you the best chance to get that grant is to prepare. So you figure out what is it that that grantor wants, and what have you got that you can give them that will encourage them to give you the money. So stage one is all about preparation. It's getting your story right, getting your story down on paper, getting it into a video, creating your, you know, thinking about, well, am I going to create a crowdfunding page? Am I going to create a Facebook page? It's thinking about all the things that you might do. At this point, you don't know whether you're going to be successful or not, but you have to kind of put that on hold, right? Just assume that the universe will provide. At this point, you're planning. And then you're going to get into the stage of writing. And if you're writing a grant application, you often have to fill in an application form. You know, you have to answer the questions that are given you. So start thinking about, what questions might I get asked? You know, who am I going to be talking to? And then how am I going to implement that plan? What sort of time frame it's going to take me to do that? I've got until a certain date to get that work done. You know when you're going on your voyage, and if you might want to keep fundraising even after the voyage. Some people have done that. So look at your time frame. We're going to talk a bit more about that. And then how you're going to evaluate success. So one evaluation of success is, of course, how much money did I raise? I mean, that's the one we all focus on, but it's also, what relationships did I build? What did I get out of this whole experience? I know that it can be scary, but it should also be fun, right? This should be a fun experience for you. I don't want to put it to you that this will be, you know, a scary, horrible experience. It should be a fun experience. Talking to people about your passion should be a fun experience, even if it's a challenging experience. So I encourage you to think about it that way, and remember that every single conversation that you have will give you more information and more input into the next conversation that you have. So if you never speak to anyone because you want things to be perfect, it will never be perfect. So nothing's ever perfect, right? So you need to get out there, have a plan, and I really encourage you to write your plan down. It makes such a difference. Having it here in your head is absolutely not the same thing. Share it with others, talk to others, you know, work collaboratively, but have a written plan of something that you want to do. And in most cases, you will have more success as an individual than you will as a group. It just seems to be that you'll put more passion and more energy into the things that you want to deliver for yourself, even though you might have a support group. You know, having other people that you're working with is fantastic, and people who support you and encourage you, but ultimately it comes down to your individual effort and your willingness to kind of be visible, put yourself out there, but have fun along the way. I'll keep saying it. So fundraising is really planning. You know, it doesn't have to be, as I said, a black box of secrecy. So set some goals. What is it that how much money is it exactly that you want to raise? When I've worked for lots of charities in my time, and they'll often say to me, well, Pamela, we want to raise as much money as possible. Well, okay, how much is enough? So we want to put a number on it. And it doesn't matter whether that number is a big or a small number. At this stage, again, you're not saying, oh, look, I absolutely know how I'm going to do it. But we're going to set a goal, set some strategies, set some measures, as we were talking about before. Use our analytical brains to get some of the planning into it, and then we can be creative about how we go about it. And then work backwards from your target. We're going to talk in a minute about how many donations or sponsorships you might need to reach your goal. I talk about donations and sponsorships interchangeably. So the difference to me, and most define the difference between a sponsorship and a donation, is that donors mostly don't ask for anything in return. You might have a crowdfunding website where you might give people perks, and you might give them little things that, you know, encourage them to support at a slightly higher level. But really, in most cases, donors do it because they support your vision and they support your goal. Sponsors want something in return. They want branding, they want exposure, they want to be associated with the things that you're doing. They want a return on their investment. And that's really the difference. It doesn't matter whether they're a company or an individual. A company can equally be a donor, and they can equally want nothing back. You know, so it's worth thinking about the numbers and thinking about how many do I need at what level. And then I gave this example this morning. A good friend of mine plays the piano, and he says that practice a little every day rather than once a week for 2 hours is much more effective. So with your fundraising, it's the same. Do a little bit every day or every other day rather than trying to fit it all into, okay, I'll do everything on Friday, because something is bound to turn up, and you won't be able to do it, or just trying to work at this for 2 or 3 or 5 hours can be a bit stressful in itself. So I would say do a little bit every other day, and plan out your work, and it'll be a more enjoyable experience. You'll be able to see how things build up over time. I'll just check in. Am I speaking a bit faster, or are we all okay? If I'm speaking too quickly, great, good. Sometimes I get too enthusiastic. So if you have a goal, what is your goal? So it's really important to have a goal, like I said, you know, just sort of vaguely thinking, maybe I'd like $5,000, but I don't want to tell anyone, won't get you as much as if you set some sort of goal. And it's worth realizing that you actually don't need that many donations. And again, donations could be sponsorships or any kind of financial contribution. So if you think that you're going to get you might think, well, I'm going to try and get a slightly smaller number of donors, but with a slightly larger gift. Then you might say, well, I only need, and I'll just use this goal as an example. I might need, 13 donations of $1,000. Do I know 13 people who could give me $1,000? Do I know 13 people who give me $500? And it just makes you think about your network. You don't need 50 people to give you $50,000. You might have someone who will give you one big gift. You just might, your employer might say, okay, if you raise half, we'll give you half. And that is a good strategy as well, to say, look, I'm going to raise, $6,000 if you give me $6,000, or if you give me $1,000, I'll raise $1,000. So these are things that you can do. But when you have this defined, you give yourself an idea of how many donations do I actually need? And it isn't that many in most cases. And most of the time, you'll end up with fewer donations than you expect and still reach your goal. But if you keep your eye on the value of the donation and the number of donations, that gives you a kind of sense of, okay, this is achievable. You know, I just don't need as many as I thought. If you're focused on only the crowdfunding side of things, you might need more donations because you might have some people who give you $50, some people who give you $20. But if your average donation is $100 and you get a few people giving you $500, then you see how it can help you. So I always feel this is called a gift chart, and it's a really good thing to keep track of. How many people gave me that $1,000? Hey, look, you know, my boss has promised me $2,000 if I can raise X. So this gives you a chance to put some analytics around it, takes away some of that emotion and stops us worrying about it quite so much. So when it comes to what are you personally investing? Now, again, it can be that idea of a matching grant where you might go to a donor and say, it could be an uncle, it could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be work, it could be a local coffee house, and say, look, I'm putting in $2,000 and I'm hoping to raise $12,000. What could we do to help each other? And it really does say a lot to people if you are making a personal investment. It doesn't have to be half of it. It doesn't even have to be 20% of it. But if you can say, look, I'm committing because I'm paying for my own flights, or I'm paying for my own thermal underwear, I'm paying for all the bits that, you know, put a cost on that, put a value on that, and say, look, I'm investing this financially. And then, of course, you're investing all your time as well. I think really help people understand just how much time you've invested in this whole program, whether it's turning up to the sessions, all the work. This is an extra session, if you like. You're turning up for these things, you're committed, and others see and feel that commitment. So don't be afraid to tell others how you are personally invested and investing in the program itself, and capture this, you know, capture it in a small video, on your crowdfunding page, you know, have a little statement about what this means to you and how much time and effort you are personally putting into it. Because you all are, you know, this is not something you can do lightly, right? You're all putting in a lot of effort, and it's appreciated, and your supporters will appreciate it as well. So how do you go about all of this? So again, there's a process that we can follow. And again, if anyone has applied for a grant, or even worked through any kind of process where you've got a series of people that you need to identify and work through a process, this is called the Donor Cultivation Circle. And we had a few conversations this morning about corporate sponsors. And I want to encourage you to think of that donor circle as a pebble thrown into a pond. So in the middle is everybody you know, the people you have a relationship with, friends, family, your employer, your past employers, your PhD, you know, support, whatever it is. They're the people who know you and know why you're doing it. They're right in the middle, and they're the ones we want to pay the closest attention to. Then the next circle, the next ripple, are those people who are just outside your circle. You know them, perhaps you have a connection to them through someone else, and you can help them understand, or your network can help them understand why you're doing this, why you need support. And then the next ripple and further out from there are people you have no connection to. So when you're thinking about who should I talk to, start with those closest to you. You'll be surprised how much people want to help you. And our temptation is to go out here. So the example I always give is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You know, they've got lots of money, haven't they? So they should be able to support us all. I mean, they should be able to pay for everybody. But no, I don't know Bill and Melinda Gates. So there's no way for us to connect to those people. Do they support the work we do? Probably not. It's not really their focus. So we'll talk to this in a minute. So I really want to encourage you to think about your inner circle. That center, that donor, are the people closest to you. And if you start by writing a list of everybody you know within that circle, even if you don't think they'll give you money. We'll come back to that in a minute. So I want you to think, when you're thinking about this donor in the middle, it's those closest, and then the circles expand out from there. So we start with research. Who do I know? Where are they? Why would they support this? How many of those have I got? So if we go back to our original slide where we say, I'm looking to get 20 donations in total. How about I get a list of about 60 people? I start with a list of 60 people. I don't know if they'll give to me or not. I don't even know if they have the capacity to give to me, but I know them, they know me. We can work together. We can have a chat about, what I'm doing. They may not give to me, but they might know somebody else who will. So I'm going to put them on my list, and I'm going to start building a bit of a database, if you like, of people who I might make contact with. That includes your HR manager at work. It includes your boss. It includes your manager. It includes the manager you used to work for before. These are people who you can sit down and have a cup of coffee with and say, look, this is what I'm doing. And then you might you'll go to qualification. So there are people in that group who, for whatever reason, are not in a position to help you right now. They've just gone on holiday. They've just left the country. They've just had a baby. They've just got a new job. You don't want to contact them for some reason. So that knocks them out of your list. But then you get a qualified list of people, and that might reduce that list to 40 or 50, depending on where you are, or 20 or 30. And from there, you can say, okay, I'm going to build a bit of a cultivation plan. How am I going to contact these people? So I'm going to create my website. I'm going to my crowdfunding page, create my Facebook page. I'm going to update my LinkedIn profile. I'm going to put all this on my Instagram. I'm going to make some phone calls. I'm going to make some meetings. So this would be your cultivation plan. How am I going to talk to those people that I've identified as potential donors, potential partners in this? Cultivation is not the same as solicitation. Big words. All that means is cultivation, I'm making friends and getting to know you and telling you my story. Solicitation is I'm going to ask you for something. If you've done the research, qualification, and cultivation right, then the solicitation, the ask, seems much easier, because you've had those conversations, you've told them what you're thinking about, you've said the sorts of things you want to raise money for, you've explained that, why you're going, why this means so much to you. And so by the time you get here, the numbers of people you're talking to shrink, but you have a much better chance of actually having a useful conversation with those people. And then once you have secured a gift or a support in some way, then we look at stewardship. How are we going to look after people? How are we going to keep them going in our journey, keep them up to date on our story? And then the circle continues, because there's always people coming in, right? So you might talk to someone, and you might talk to your old boss, and they say, hey, you should really speak to Mrs. Smith. She loves this sort of thing. So they're not someone but you've been introduced to them, and you start the cycle again. So it's worth keeping this in mind. If you go straight from research to solicitation, you're cutting through a whole element of development for yourself and for that relationship with that person. It may feel slow. You might think, oh, that was going to take forever, Pamela. How am I going to have the time to do that? But in fact, by taking the time is how you understand your own story and how you understand what that person might actually support you with. So it is about getting to know them, getting to understand why they might want to support you. And if you're thinking, well, I don't know whether this person has any money or if they're interested, so again, we come back to this connection. If you're looking for qualifying a donor in fundraising speak, we look for connections to the organization, connection to the cause, connection to the person. So if you have a connection, that's a very good start. And then do they have any interest? Do they care about what you're doing? If you might say, wow, this person's I've seen that they donate and they support other things. Have they ever supported women in STEM, women in leadership, anything vaguely related to that? If you can make a connection to something they've already supported, even better. If there's nothing there, then you just might want to see how you're going to build that connection. And then do they have the capacity to give? So if you're looking at corporations, looking at businesses, you might make the assumption that they have some money. If you're looking at individuals, it can be a bit harder. if they're well-known philanthropists, they may have their own foundation, and you can Google those foundations and see what they support and what they give to. If it's somebody you know and you have no idea, really that's why these first 2 points come in. What often happens is we look at capacity and say, well, that person's got plenty of money, I'll go and ask them. I'm not saying that you do that, but this can happen in fundraising. We look for the people who have the money. So let's look at those who have a linkage and a connection with, an interest in what you're doing, and then the capacity to give. You'll be surprised how if someone really cares about what you're doing, they will find a way to help you. And I've seen that time and time again. So I'm just going to pause for 1 second. Does anyone have any questions, any thoughts? I'm very happy to answer any questions at this point. You're all being very polite, quiet.
Hello, Valentina.
Hello.
Here.
Hello.
I have a question, Pamela, and everything is great that you tell us, but one of the questions that I have is when to start.
Sure.
I'm not sure it will be like too early, like we don't want to start and maybe we'll have, momentum and start, but then stop and maybe it will be difficult again to start to, again, people, get attention and everything. So when is the best moment to start? And
right now.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. So I would start planning now. I would start planning now, and I would start, thinking about who you might contact, what you might like to do, decide on whether you want a chuffed, page, or whether you're going to do things on Facebook, or what you're going to do. I would start now. You can never start too early. And particularly if you do want to make connections, even with small businesses locally to you, they don't have to be, they don't have to be Microsoft, little businesses close to you. It doesn't hurt to start early. But it really is about you having your story straight, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But you can't start planning early enough, in my humble opinion.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. And what is the usual amount of funds that should be raised? There is no usual, so it really depends on you. So if you believe that you can get support from your company, you might need less money than someone who doesn't have a job, right? If you believe that you've got a couple of people who are willing to support you, you can say, all right, well, I'm going to raise all the money I need for the whole of the online program, the voyage, you might. So it really is an individual choice how much you decide to raise. And I would, I'd be a little bit brave about it, but also recognize how much you think that you're starting with, and then whether you want to try and raise every penny that you need or just a part of it, and where the rest of those funds will come from if it doesn't come through your fundraising. So I don't think there's a just one number. It'll be individual to each person. Because you don't have to fundraise, right? I mean, some people don't. Some people get the funding from their jobs, part of the funding from their jobs. But this is for those of you who really feel, that fundraising is a big part of how you're going to raise the money. Fantastic. So some nice stories going on in the chat. I'm going to keep moving, and I'm just going to take us to the next point, and then we're going to have another little breakout and talk about how you might talk about your story. So research was done a few years ago by a couple of very clever women, and they looked at all the charity materials the charity research out there. And the two main reasons why people donate to anybody or anything is they become aware of your cause and somebody asks them to give. So it's really hard to overemphasize this, because if I don't know that you exist and you never ask me, then I'm not going to give. That's it. So visibility, making people aware of what you're doing, making people aware of why you're doing it, and then giving them a way to support you, asking them to support you, are the two main ways you'll get support. So it seems really obvious, but it is amazing how it gets missed. So it's not enough to be visible, because there are many great causes that are visible that don't get any money. We all know about things that don't get funded, and we wonder why. They're so wonderful. But somebody has to go out there and actually have a conversation about it. So I really encourage you to just be a little braver, because many great causes are underfunded, And it is in a great deal to do with the fact that we're not talking about it. We're not asking for specific help. Of course, sometimes charities are asking for help all the time and still don't get the funding, but they will get some, and you will get some as well. So I encourage you to be specific. That's why we go back to how much do you actually need to raise? You know, how much am I putting in? How much do I need to raise? And be organized, you know, be able to share if somebody wants, you know, some input on, you know, what the program is about or why you're doing this, have something that you can share. Of course, be polite, but also be timely. I talked about this a little bit this morning. In Australia, Christmas is summer. So from December to February, no one does anything. You know, there's not much work going on that, you know, around sponsorships and all of those sorts of things. So what is it like in your country? You know, where are the periods when people are not really working? Might be a religious holiday, might be some other, you know, Easter here is very quiet. However, having said that, our end of financial year is the end of June. And so budgets need to be spent by the end of June. Planning for next year's budget starts in about March, February, March. So you've got a window between February, March, April, May, June in Australia when you really want to make sure that if you're going to be in anyone's budget, sponsorship budget, donation budget, then that's the time to, you know, at the very latest to talk to them. By the time they've got through to July, they've already planned their budget. So these may not matter in your instance, but maybe your university, if you're with a university, they might have certain timing around when they accept grant applications. Go find out. Go find out what your university, what their timing is, how they might fit you into their schedule. The more you can fit into someone else's schedule and work within their timelines, the better chance you'll be. It's nothing worse than turning up for a grant and they say, oh, it closed last week, you know, so you have to apply next year. So that's why start early, look at the timing of deadlines of grants and applications and things like that, so you can give yourself enough time to make an application. But, you know, be brave as well. There are things that, you know, you take a chance as well. Even if you think, well, I think I've missed that deadline, there's no harm in reaching out and saying, look, I've got something really wonderful I want to share with you. Here's about working on your message and, you know, the summary of your message, defining your motivation, you know, why are you doing it? What is it all about? You know, what do you want to gain from being part of Homeward Bound? What will you do with what you learn? What's the point of all this? You know, what's the outcome that you're striving for? You want to define your public profile, you know, have a clear photograph, consistent contact information, a really good bio. I don't know if Homeward Bound participants use LinkedIn enough. I think it's a really great networking tool. We've got groups for each cohort. I'd really encourage you to have a look and see if LinkedIn is useful for your network. And work with the media. You know how you can explain some of the key themes of the work that you're doing. If you've just started with HB8, you know, this is all coming. But, you know, looking at your platform, targeting your audience, we can help you with a lot of this. But just have a think about, you know, the message that you want to put out there and why you're doing what you're doing. And the more you talk to people, the more you speak about it, the more refined that message will become. So what we're going to do now is have a little breakout session again. And I want you to have a think about what your story is and share it with someone in the breakout room. So share it with each other. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be exactly what you're going to say next time, but have a think about your story and share that in the breakout room. You want to have you know, the idea is that you meet the person, the donor that you've been trying to meet for the last 6 months. You get into an elevator and you've got 30 floors going down to explain your story to them. What are you going to say? So you've been trying to get a meeting with this person. You finally got them to yourself, or you're at a drinks party and they're standing next to you. What do you say to them? So it's a little bit of fun. No one's going to hold you to it. You don't have to say it this way in the future. So let's join the breakout rooms, and then we'll come back in 5 minutes. And if we've got some stories anyone wants to share, they're welcome to do so. I think we have everybody back. Thank you all. How was that? Is anyone going to share? Can I encourage someone to share? Doesn't have to be perfect. Can I pick on someone? Go on, put your hand up.
I'll jump in.
Go on, well done.
Well, hang on. Do you want my 30 seconds? We had conversations around, I find it much easier to talk about the whole program, the 100 women, the 34 countries, the global reach, the focus on leadership for women in STEM in particular, and then move on to my own interest being health, and how individual health is so profoundly linked to global health, and how the interplay between what we're doing for our own benefit also needs to work for the environment as well. So that's sort of 30 seconds. And my main reflection on that was, I can do that and people are always interested, especially when you add a 3-week trip to Antarctica. It's a big selling point in terms of interest, but converting that then into actually money is the challenging bit for me, I think, because it still feels a bit frivolous to say, can you give me money so I can go on a trip to Antarctica? But some of the points that have come up, particularly Bianca's talk earlier, has been really helpful for that. So thank you.
Good. Would anyone else like to share any insights or their 30 seconds? All right, as you're all being so polite, I will keep moving, but I hope it was useful to you, and I hope that you keep on thinking about it. And remember, you're not, I mean, of course you want to go to Antarctica, but why do you want to go? You know, why do you want to go? What is going to be the value of you being there with, 100 or so women from all around the world with an interest in science, maybe even an interest in your area? What are you going to do together? What's going to come out of it? They're really the stories. It's not about, yes, of course, you're asking people to help you get the money together to do it, but this is an expedition, right? And I would look to someone I think very highly of, and that's Ernest Shackleton, one of the best fundraisers for expeditions. That's what he got all his money from other people to do his expeditions. So, okay, he did it in a different way, but he still went to Antarctica. So I encourage you to look at the history of some of our great explorers and expedition leaders, because they all did it with fundraising. And it's often forgotten. And that's how you get your name on a boat. Many of their little boats are named after donors. So we're going to finish just before the hour. So we're going to have a little bit, I'm going to go through these last slides and then we'll have a few minutes for any questions, and then we're going to finish up just before the hour. So some of you have been talking about sponsors and how to get them. And like I said, I don't know that sponsors are the first group that I would go to, but certainly if you've got a connection like that lovely coffee example, I think that's a great way to get involved with a company. But one of the most important things when you're thinking about corporates is not whether they've got the funds, whether they've got the money, but whether their values align with yours. So is this a company I want to be associated with? Is this a company that I'm happy to have their logo against me? Do I believe in what they do? Are they an organization whose values fit with my values and fit with HB's values? And what sort of deliverables do they want? I mean, are they just looking to stick their logo everywhere, or do they actually care about the outcomes that you're trying to achieve? And are they interested in just branding, or are they interested in actually helping you communicate some of the messages that are important to you and why you join this program? Are they going to give you opportunities to speak about what you've done? Are they going to share your stories through their networks? And how's that going to make a difference for you? So again, it comes back to that, connection, interest, and capacity. But with sponsorship, you want to make sure that they're a group you want to be associated with. And we think about this as well all the time. I worked for a zoo for many years, And while we sold beer on site, adults could buy beer. We didn't want a beer sponsor because we didn't want beer logos all over the zoo, because we had a lot of kids that came to the zoo. So these are important things for you to think about. What do I want to be associated with, as much as who should I approach and where should I go? So you might write down a list of local companies that you really like. It might be your local dry cleaner, but it doesn't matter. It's about, do they have the right values? Will this person help me share my story? And can I tell a story? I think, coffee is a really great one. I love that. I just love that story. So, let's think about that when we're thinking about our sponsorship criteria. And then let's have a look at value versus effort. You can spend a lot of time chasing people who are not actually going to give you any money, or doing small things that raise a little bit of money or a little bit of profile. They don't take a lot of work, so you think, well, why not? I might as well just do it. But that takes up your time. So this little sort of matrix is saying that really you don't want to do things that have low value and very high effort. I mean, you do as little of that as possible. If something's going to take a huge amount of your time and you're not actually going to get much back, have a think about how much time you want to put into that. And again, if it's low value, low effort, it might make you little bits of little donations, but it will take up your time over time. And then if what you really want is something that's high value, low effort. So the least amount of effort, the highest amount of value. Up here in this B block of the question mark, high value, high effort, there are things that you think, look, that's really worth my while putting myself out to get that. This is a person, I'm going to go and travel across the country because this person is speaking at an event and I really want to talk to them because they're going to help me. That's great, but don't do too many of them or you'll use up a lot of your time in that high effort area. So we want to try and do things that will give us the best bang for our buck, the best value for effort. And so everyone can do things their own way, and they will do things their own way. But as Bianca was saying, some things were great fun, created a lot of, energy, but didn't actually raise a lot of money. But if that created profile for you, if that was a good experience, then great. But how much of that can you do? So you want to have a mix of things, and hopefully the higher the value for the least amount of effort, that's what you're looking for in your fundraising. So go where you feel most comfortable. If writing sponsorship proposals, writing grant proposals, doing presentations and talks is something you feel really comfortable with, that's what I mean by low effort. But if it's really hard work for you, you don't know how to do it, you don't know who to write to, you hate speaking in public, that's very high effort, right? So think about the things that are going to work best for you. So that's just a little prompt to give you something to think about. And you may want to take a screenshot of this. This is a little template that you can use to write your strategy. What do you want to achieve? I am very goal driven. I like goals written down. How much money am I trying to raise? When am I going to do it by? Those things give me direction. You want to make it as specific as possible and really time bound. You've got until November, December, January, February, whenever you want to, the end of your campaign effectively. When are you going to start? You're going to start very soon. Put some time around it and put some goals around it. And then what approach are you going to take? Are you going to focus on corporates? Are you going to focus more on individuals? More money comes from individuals. Absolutely, without doubt. You might get the odd corporate who'll help you. Your company and individuals are where you're going to get your support, I would argue, with the occasional company who loves you and will support an individual. Then how are you going to implement your strategy? Writing down, again, like we talked about before, how many donations do I want to get? Will my employer help me? Do I know any trusts and foundations who I can approach? Do I know anyone who's going to support an individual rather than want to give that money to another company? Set up your crowdfunding page, your Chuffed page or equivalent in your country. Make sure you have visibility. If nobody can find you, they can't donate to you. That's bottom line. They have to be able to find you. So create something that gives people a chance to find you, read your story. Even if you meet someone in a lift and say, here's my Chuffed address, here's where you go to find out about me. At least you've got that and you can tell people where to go in the nicest way. I don't mean tell them where to go. You know what I mean? So how do I what do I have to help me succeed? You have us. We are here to help you. I want every single one of our team wants you to succeed, right? Get a team around you. Get some people who may not give you any money, but they love you. They will talk to you on a Sunday afternoon and drink wine with you or coffee with you and say, you can do this. We can help you. Have some support. When I stood for council, the one thing I would not do was do it on my own. And I told the women who nominated me, I said, I can't do it on my own. They said, don't worry, we're here with you, right? These were ex-councillors, women who'd done it before. You have a network of women within the Convergence, within HB. You are not on your own. So those days when you really do need to reach out to someone, reach out to me, reach out to Bianca, reach out to the team, but what else do you have? Have you got IT skills? Are you really good getting social media going? Do you have any money that you can invest in marketing yourself? Can you get yourself to a place, if there's a conference or something happening where you want to talk to someone, can you do that? Can you set up a meeting with your HR manager? Will they help you? If you can get internal support, internal advocates, that's going to be a big help to you as well. So list all of those resources, even if you're not sure how to use them right now. And then how will I measure my results? Of course, you're going to measure money, but you're also going to measure the things that you get out of this, right? You know, you want to make sure, you know, one of the things I wanted, I've just come back from Antarctica. One of the things I wanted was to see a leopard seal, right? I didn't see a leopard seal, but somebody else did, and I got a video of it. Success, right? So, you know, give yourself some things that are not about money, and it really does round out your whole sort of goal of what you're trying to do. Nothing happens until someone asks. You know, you've nothing to lose by asking someone. I never ever had anyone say, oh my God, Pamela, why on earth did you ask me? They might say no, or they may say not now, but that's about all. That's the worst it can get. But they'll usually say, but I know someone who might be able to. Why don't you talk to Bill or Fred or Julie, or, you know, inevitably you learn from every conversation and every time you ask, even no matter how awkward that is. What I'd like to leave you with are a few actions. So I'd like you to set your financial goal, right? Think about that goal that you're trying to reach. Is it 5,000, 3,000, 10,000, 20,000? Set a goal and start working through some of that plan. Build your crowdfunding site. So create your Chuffed page, right? Or the equivalent for your country, whatever works for you. Many of the women use Chuffed. Go on and have a look at what other women have done and see if you can do differently, better, more interesting, whatever you like. Get your visibility up, right? Look at your social media. Can you update your photographs? Can you update your story? You know, but get at least one new site happening, and think about one person that you'll contact. I am not a mind reader, but I can guarantee that each of one of you is thinking of someone, have thought of someone in this whole conversation where you're thinking, you know what, I reckon she'd help me if I asked her, but I haven't been brave enough to ask. So go and ask that person. Ask them for a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, ask them for a 5-minute chat, and see what happens from that conversation. I guarantee you will learn something from it. All up for those goals? Everybody happy? Yes, very good. So now we've got some time for some questions, and I'm really happy. If I can answer them, I will, and if I can't, then I'll come back to you a little later. So would anyone like to turn on their microphone and ask a question? And there are no silly questions.
Hi, I'll kick off our question.
Please.
One of the things I really struggle with is it's something I potentially could afford to do on my own. And so getting past that kind of barrier of asking for help or asking people for money when it's something I probably don't need as much as some other people might. Just if you have any tips, should I not be fundraising? And it's that's kind of I guess the big question for me at the moment, and kind of my barrier to getting started.
Yeah. I would say yes, fundraise. you know, people like being part of a journey. They like going on these journeys with you. And many women want to, many people want to support women in these journeys. And I think go out and talk to a few people. Jennifer, I would suggest, you know, talk to your manager if you're working, talk to your friends, tell them what you're worried about, you know, and say, look, I'd like to raise, a bit like I said before, you know, I'd like to raise $10,000. I think I can put 5,000 in myself or 2,000 in myself, and I'd really like some help with the rest. And what could we do together? You know, I think you'll find some interesting responses. Would that be an approach that would make you feel a bit more comfortable?
Yeah, I think so. It's, I guess, important for me to make sure that they're getting something out of it too.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where it's yeah, helpful. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. Bianca shared her Chuff page. Do have a look. And have a look. There's others as well. Please do have a look. Anybody else? Any questions in the last few minutes? About anything we've talked about today or anything we haven't talked about today? Has anyone raised any money yet? Has anyone had any success they'd like to share? Love to go out on a success story. Emma?
Yeah, so I haven't done much, but I did speak with my employer, and you know, and straight away they came in with 60% of the course. So yeah,
that's fantastic. And did you expect that?
No, I wasn't sure what to expect actually. Yeah, so yeah, it's
that's brilliant.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. Well done. Well, look, I think that's a great comment to go out on. Thank you, Bianca. Thank you, every one of you, for coming along today. We are here to help you. We want you to succeed. And I want a picture of you all in Antarctica. And I want to see your Chuffed pages or your whichever type of page you set up. So share it with us. And if we can help in any way, we will. And thanks for coming along today.